right here on WNRI 99.9 on the FM dial, 1380 on the AM dial. You can also catch us live on WNRI.com. The show is available excuse me, on Spotify as a podcast, and we rebroadcast the show every Saturday at 1 p.m. So you have a multitude of opportunities to catch the Joe Luca Real Estate Show and learn the latest about real estate and buying, owning, and selling a home. For you, the consumer, information for you, the consumer. A little bit of an update. Just wanted to go to my trusty Mortgage News Daily website. The 30-year fixed rate as of today, 6.22. 30-year FHA 5.7. 30-year VA 5.72. So, folks, we're down into the fives, so you can get a good rate. All of the headlines have people a little bit nervous, so we don't have enough buyers coming into the marketplace, and this is actually borne out in something that was seen on the on Realtor.com on their website. You know, people are looking for more reductions, presumably before they're willing to put their homes on the market. That being said, the market is still, houses are still selling. Values in this part of the country are still holding steady. So the market's good. There's no reason or need to panic at this point. Owning a home is still the best way for an individual to increase his or her net worth, and the best way to pass on wealth to future generations in your family. But there are a couple of caveats that I always like to share with people, because you ideally what you want to do is you want to make good decisions when buying real estate. And some people will say, well, Joe, why should I buy real estate now? Values are high. I'll wait for their values to come down. I'll wait for them to crash. Well, you could be waiting a really long time, number one, because I don't have a crystal ball that's going to tell me when values are going to come down, if ever. And if you look over, a view from 30,000 feet at the value of homes in the United States, they have steadily increased over time. And they're even having the biggest real estate market correction in history back in 2009, 10, 11. Values are still high. So it's a solid investment. And I just tell people, look, you have to pay money every month to keep a roof over your head. Wouldn't it be better to pay for those payments to go towards increasing your net worth as a homeowner and not your landlord's net worth? Okay. So that's kind of the way it should be framed up. And of course, as your family grows, then you can always sell a home, buy a bigger one. You downsize, you can sell a home, buy a smaller one, whatever the situation is. You want to buy the best home that you can afford on the best street in the best neighborhood that you can afford. And I've said this before, you don't necessarily want to get the biggest house and compromise on neighborhood unless you really like that neighborhood. But you want to get the best neighborhood and the best street and the best house. And by best house, I don't mean the most expensive, the most grandiose. A house that makes sense, that has quote-unquote good bones, and is suitable for you and your spouse, you and your family, whatever the situation may be. What you want to avoid doing is buying a home which would be difficult to sell at some point down the road. So I advise everyone to steer clear of one-bedroom homes and two-bedroom homes. Even a one-bedroom condo can be a challenge, but a two-bedroom condo is certainly very doable. because there's always demand for a 2-bedroom condo. Okay? And that's what I try to convey to my clients, that when you buy a house, you want to think about when the house is going to have to be sold. And you might only need a 1-bedroom house today, but if you could buy a 2 or 3-bedroom house, you'd be better off, because at some point, someone is going to have to sell that house. So if you have a 3-bedroom house that you're selling, it's going to be marketable, it's going to be acceptable to a greater pool of buyers than a 2-bedroom house. Smell what I'm cooking? So a little bit of preparation and understanding the long game when you're buying a home can help. And of course, self promotion here, and well, it is the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I'm a realtor. You should, as a buyer, always retain the services of a buyer's agent. You should sign a contract, an exclusive contract with a realtor that you trust, that you have a good relationship with, who has a good understanding of what your needs are. And then look for homes. I apologize. I've got tickle in my throat and the water's not doing it. So if you have a good realtor on your side, they're going to provide you with a lot of advice, guidance, suggestions that could save you a lot of time, money, frustration, and aggravation down the road. Because any realtor worth his or her salt has a lot more experience buying and selling homes than you do. Okay? So don't be surprised if you meet with a realtor and they give you 2 forms to sign. One is a relationship disclosure form, which is required by law. Doesn't matter what kind of real estate you're buying or selling, that form has to be signed. So that way the consumer, you, understands the relationship you have with your realtor and your realtor has with you. Whether you are whether they are your designated client representative as buyer or seller, or a transaction facilitator, which essentially means they have to handle all the ministerial duties of the real estate transaction, but they do not owe you the benefit of confidentiality. Okay, so if I'm working with a buyer and my buyer says, you know, Joe, I want to buy a $400,000 house, I've got $200,000 to put down, but I only want to spend $400. I'm not going to share that information with the listing agent or the seller when we're negotiating, because they could easily come back and say, no, I'm not going to compromise in price. She's got the money. She can put more down. Or he. Or them. Information is shared on a need-to-know basis, and when I'm representing my clients, whether it's the buyer or the seller, I'm very selective with what information I share, and I share the information to benefit my client during the negotiations. Okay. Conveying that my client is a very well qualified buyer when submitting the offer is very different than saying how much money my client has available to spend. Okay. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 on the AM dial. Shout out to our sponsors, Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. Vern is licensed by the state of Rhode Island, and he represents you, the property owner, not, underline, not the insurance company. He looks out for your best interest, and he will work on your behalf and negotiate on your behalf with the insurance company to make sure that you receive every dollar you are entitled to based on your insurance policy. Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. That's his number. He's a local guy, 484-300-8495. Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. And of course, Compass Title and Escrow, Anthony Betancourt and his team at Compass Title. They're right in Lincoln. They do a great job representing our buyers and our sellers, anticipating potential challenges or problems throughout the transaction so that they're not surprises, air quote, surprises that pop up at the end that could derail the transaction. That's why I like working with Anthony Betancourt and Compass Title and Escrow. And of course, the last thing after you leave the closing, you're going to go to your new home and you will have selected G Metz Moving and Storage to move your belongings because they do a really good job. They're very competitively priced. All of their workers are employees. They have their own trucks. And you can even book or price a move online. So if it's 10 o'clock at night and you're like, jeepers, I wonder how much it would cost to move everything from this house to that house I'm looking at in Westerly or Cumberland. You can find out. Just go to gmetzmoving.com. Metz is M as in Michael, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, Z as in Zebra. G Metz Moving and Storage. Go-to movers, the best move you'll ever make in southern New England. They have moved me, my family, my colleagues, my friends, my clients. That's how much I trust G Metz Moving and Storage. Okay. I just want to do a quick announcement. There was a press release that came out today from the office of the mayor of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Mayor Beauchamp announces milling and paving road work to begin during the week of September 16th. Mayor Christopher Beauchamp announced a project to mill and pave city streets where Rhode Island Energy installed new gas lines, which will begin the week of September 16th. Hartford Paving will be responsible for the road work, and Rhode Island Energy will cover the costs. Mayor Beauchamp emphasized the importance of maintaining and repairing Woonsocket's road infrastructure to ensure the safety and convenience of drivers, bicyclists, pedestrians. He commended Rhode Island Energy for promptly addressing their need to remediate city streets where they had previously installed gas lines. Okay, I'm not going to read off all the dates because probably won't remember it, but just beware that along La Francois Ave, Lambert Ave, and Sydney Ave, from about the 17th of September to the 2nd of October, there will be milling, cold planing, and paving on those three streets. So plan your day accordingly. I just want to point out that, and this is not, hopefully it makes sense to everybody, maintaining property, maintaining roads, you're much better off dealing with small degradations in the condition as opposed to waiting until it's really bad, because it's exponentially more expensive to do that. So when a road has just minor cracks, minor issues, that's a lot less expensive to deal with it than when it has major cracks, potholes, and everything is falling apart at the edges. So it makes a lot of sense to take care of this maintenance and repair as soon as possible, especially when Rhode Island Energy is paying for it. So we're fortunate in that regard. Okay, we get rid of that announcement. We can move on, get back to real estate news. So the real estate interest rates are down. Now I want to point something out. I was telling Tommy before he came on the air, and I want to thank Tommy Breen for the great introduction that he provides to me, or that he gives me every week. Rates are down, and they have already factored in the expected rate reduction from the Fed. And it's probably going to be next week, the 18th. Now, when the Fed reduces their interest rates, they're not reducing mortgage interest rates. They're reducing the Fed funds rate, which is the rate at which banks borrow money. And I don't want to get too technical, but it's an ancillary or secondary impact on mortgage interest rates. So the mortgage interest rates can move somewhat independently of what the Fed does. So because we had the economic news that came out over the past few weeks, not good economic news, especially with jobs, they had to revise down by over 800,000 the amount of new jobs that were created in this country. So that was a big kind of a punch in the gut. And then the new jobs that were created was lower than expected, and a greater percentage of those new jobs were government jobs. So people working for federal, state, municipal, and county governments across the country. So those jobs typically aren't good for the economy, because if you get a job working for the state or the federal government, you're not making anything. You're kind of dealing with people or shuffling paper back and forth. When you are in the private sector, if it's a farm that's hiring more people, well, presumably they're hiring more people because they have more produce that they're dealing with, or more animals that need to be dealt with. They're positive things which are good for the economy, because they're not going to sell more produce unless they have demand for more produce. Okay, they're not going to if it's a factory or that's hiring people to work in the factory to make widgets. Well, they're hiring more people because they need more capacity so they can make more widgets that can be sold to the public. Okay, tradesmen, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, painters. Those folks are hired when there is a need. Okay, and that's why we say as the housing economy goes, so goes the economy for the entire country, because if people are buying houses and selling houses, people are hiring electricians and plumbers and sheetrock guys and insulation guys and gals and folks like that to do the work. So that means that more of those people are hired. They're creating a product which is going to help the economy. All right. So because of those weren't the biggest chunk of jobs that were being created in the most recent data, the Wall Street people, the economy, the talking heads said, "Oh boy, the Fed has to lower interest rates now because they really need to do whatever they can to strengthen the economy, to spur growth and activity." So everybody is figuring that the rates are going to drop, and that's one of the reasons, that mortgage interest rates have been dropping the past few weeks. Okay, and as I said, 6.22, that's down 0.03%. 5.7 for an FHA mortgage. Now, an FHA mortgage is, you may say, well, why is an FHA mortgage lower than a conventional? Well, FHA mortgages, they have a little bit more flexibility with the quality, the credit quality of their borrowers. You can also have only 3.5% down. If you have more, you can put more down, but you can qualify for a mortgage with only 3.5% down. And when you have the median price of a single-family home that's knocking on $500,000, that's still a chunk of money. Okay, so you have all of that economic vitality that can be created by FHA mortgages. Now, a conventional mortgage, why would someone want to go with a conventional mortgage? Well, if you have an adequate deposit, okay, down payment, 5, 10, 15%, depending on the lender and your situation, and your credit is stronger, you can get a conventional mortgage. Now, with a conventional mortgage, because it's for a better quality credit profile for a buyer, and typically the buyer is putting more than 3.5% down. Usually it's 10, 15, sometimes 20% or more. The lender's like, well, the house doesn't have to be as perfect. So if you're going to buy this house with an FHA mortgage, the house may not qualify for the mortgage. They may have peeling paint. It may have windows that are not functioning properly, need to be have cracks in them. The roof may be at the end of its life. It may not have railings. The stairs going into the house could be hazardous. The heating system could be sketchy. Okay, maybe it works, but it's not very good. These are all things that could disqualify a home from an FHA mortgage. With a conventional mortgage, the lender is typically like, yeah, we'll let this buyer buy it because they're putting 10% down, 15% down. So if they're putting $75,000 down on a single-family home, they have skin in the game, quote unquote. So if something happens with the boiler or with the roof, they're going to want to get it taken care of because they're not going to want that $75,000 deposit get washed away or be diminished because they don't maintain the house. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Whereas with an FHA mortgage, folks don't have the extra reserves, don't have the cash reserves. So they buy a house with 3.5% down, and the lender, FHA guarantees the loan from the lender. They are assured, based on the condition of the house, that the boiler is in good shape. It doesn't have any safety hazards, things like that. There aren't any lead paint hazards with peeling paint. Those are the types of things that an FHA mortgage removes the chance of those issues coming up. Because if it did come up and the homeowner was in a situation where, wait, I have to put a new boiler in or pay my mortgage, they're going to put a new boiler in so they don't freeze to death. And then the mortgage is going to have to wait. Okay, so that's a simplified version for why FHA mortgages are for houses that are in better condition, that need less fix-up or repair. Now, if you want to use an FHA mortgage to buy a house that needs repair, they have a product. It's called a 203K, and that is basically it's a rehab loan. It's a loan, a mortgage that gives you money to purchase the home and money to make specific repairs by a licensed contractor. And typically what happens is all the paperwork is filled out. There's an inspector who makes sure that, yes, this is what needs to be done to comply for FHA. And they inspect the work when it's done, after it's been completed by the contractor or contractors. Contractors submit invoices to get paid. And then the inspector says, yep, they did the work. It's up to code. They're licensed. They're insured. So the lender can forward that check for $15,000 to ABC Contracting or whatever the company is. Those loans, there are guidelines to those loans and loan limits, etc., for the amount of repairs, and you have a lot of leeway for what you can use the money for, but they're not going to let you use it for a new kitchen if you need a new boiler. Okay, they're probably going to, the inspector would make sure that you took care of the boiler first. Okay, so it's a great program. Speaking of rehab loans, there's actually another really awesome program that's offered by Shoreham Bank, former home loan and investment, and that is a Title I loan, and it provides money to the homeowner, and it can go above the appraised value on the home. So that's a really interesting product, and I probably should have someone on from there. My buddy Scott Bro and Sean Hogan. I should have them on from some week, and we'll talk about that program because it really is a fantastic program for folks. So let's say you own a home already, you bought it, it's a USDA loan, you live in a rural area, so it's 100% loan to value. You didn't put any money down when you bought the house. You're in the house for 6 months, the boiler dies or the roof fails. call up Scott, call up Sean. You can get a loan, even though your house is already maxed out. The loan to value is 100%. You can still get a loan against the home. Okay. And that is a really fantastic program. So yeah, so I have to make a note to myself to get Sean and Scott to come on the show in the next couple of months. All right. So the elephant in the room, what we have not talked about yet, is today's primary day in the state of Rhode Island. And there's this little thing going on at 9 o'clock called the debate, nationwide event between the two leading presidential candidates. And I'm sure that everyone is interested in that and going to be watching how those two individuals perform. You know, I've shared my thoughts about this before. You know, Vice President Kamala Harris has proposed a $25,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers, and while that sounds like it's a great idea, you know, I'm kind of a supply sider economically. I'm an economic dork, so I'm you know, I don't think that it's a good idea when the government just gives money away for free. Number one. However, if they're going to do it in a case like this, if the objective is to address the housing shortage, creating more demand, needlessly increasing demand, is not going to improve the situation for anyone. Okay? If we have 5 loaves of bread left in the store, and we have 10 people that want to buy bread, and then someone says, oh wait, there's 5 more people across the street that are looking for bread, and we bring more people in to buy loaves of bread that we don't have enough supply for, is that going to help or harm the situation? Whereas, if we took that $25,000 tax credit for one house, and we gave it to a local builder here in the little state of Rhode Island, said, hey, for every house that you build, we'll give you a $25,000 tax credit. We would have the attention of lots of builders who would start cracking away at building houses, because there are developments that are all approved, but the numbers do not make sense. So the developers are sitting on their land because it doesn't make sense for them to spend, to extend out all of these dollars and have to wait so long. But if they were enticed with a tax credit, that gives them a lot of different opportunities for things that they could do. Okay? So, you know, I don't like that idea that the vice president proposed. I think it's much more, if we're going to do things to help people, we need to do things that help the most people. You know, I'm reminded of the saying, you can, you know, give a man fish and he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish and he can eat for the rest of his life. I'm for the latter. I don't want to have to give somebody fish every day. Let's show him how to fish. Let's show him how to hunt so we can go out and feed him or herself. That's what this country was built on. Self-reliance. And it's unfortunate that, you know, we're getting away from that culturally, politically, you know, and a lot of these folks that in power, they want us minions to kind of argue back and forth and fight while they continue to gather up power and steal money from us. And I say us because it's the people. The people, our government, our country is owned by us, the people. And, you know, I'm going to venture a little bit further afield here from real estate, staying on the political theme, and, you know, talk about things that the government has done that I think we the citizenry, we're stuck holding the short end of the stick. And many of us, yours truly, were fooled, were confounded. If it's talking about going back to, after 9/11 and going into Afghanistan and that whole war and Iraq and weapons of mass destruction, all these years later, I'm perfectly willing to say we were duped. I was duped. I can remember having pretty significant discussions with some dear friends of mine who were trying to help me understand what was going on. And I said, oh no, we have to do this. And I defended those clowns who were in power for 10 years. Everybody was throwing darts at them, and I said, oh no, they did, well, guess who had egg on his face? Me. And and it was just it's all for power, so they can just, get their fat cat friends in there who were big shots at these weapon companies and, the military industrial complex that Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us about in the 1950s. We are living that right now. We're living that right now. And hopefully people, one or two of you listening will understand what I'm saying and pay attention to what's going on. Because I know I didn't. I was a political operative in a previous life, and I was, hook, line, and sinker. And it was very disheartening. A lot of disappointment in myself that I fell for it. More recently, we had the whole thing, with COVID, and I'm not going to say one way or the other about COVID, whether it was good or bad or real or not, but forcing people to get vaccinated. The government, they shouldn't do that. This is the United States of America. My body, my choice is a saying that a lot of people like to say. And I think that that was another example. And why did that happen? Because there are people in bed with entities that have lots of money. Big Pharma is selling us down the river. I read a statistic about, I think it was a month ago now, and during COVID, the restaurant industry was decimated from COVID. Decimated. And the numbers were something like it was hundreds of millions of dollars that the restaurant industry, that's what their market capitalization was. Okay, hundreds of millions of dollars. The lobbying budget that Big Pharma has, just the lobbying budget, not what their market capitalization is $1 billion. So all of those employees who worked at restaurants during COVID, all of those servers who couldn't work because the restaurants had to close, so you had a restaurant that had a kitchen staff and let's say 20 or 30 people up front, all they needed was the kitchen staff. And that was because the politicians knew what side of the bread, which side their bread was buttered on. And Big Pharma had its way. We need to open our eyes and see what's going on. Our children, RFKJ, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, he's one of the guys I don't agree with everything he says, but I have so much respect for him and have had for years because he speaks truth to power. He tells it like it is. And, he's an environmentalist, but he's an old school environmentalist. The Democrat Party today, they're talking about the environment, but it only has to do with fossil fuels, carbon footprint. That's only one part of environmentalism. What about all of the animals? What about the trees? What about vegetation? respecting nature. That's environmentalism. That's certainly not what the Democrat Party is concerning itself with. They're talking about EVs, electric vehicles. Why? Because there's a lot of money that's being put in the pockets of politicians via lobbyists. And these aren't necessarily American companies that are benefiting, because all the companies that make the batteries for these EVs, most of them are in China. Wind power, wind turbines, made in China. The wind turbines, after they've used up, they've concluded their utility, all hazardous material. What are we going to do with all those wind turbines? How are we going to dispose of them? So folks, these are a lot of the things that we need to be paying attention to in times like this. We have the great debate tonight. I don't know if anyone else coined that term first, but I'm saying it now. And it's late. It starts at 9 o'clock, so it's going to be tough for some of us to stay awake. But pay attention to what's said and what's not said. I can say a lot. I can use a lot of words can come out of my mouth. Hopefully the words that come out of my mouth mean something and there's a message there, as opposed to me just talking to talk. My objective is to educate you, the listener, the viewers, about real estate, and tonight inspire you to pay attention to the political process. Pay attention to what's going on, because so many of us have been duped by the political parties. Red versus blue, R versus D. And my friends were like, Joe, it's the same thing, doesn't matter. Oh, you're wrong. There's a huge difference. This one's pro this one's anti that. And there'll be specific issues. Pro Second Amendment, pro choice. And they get everybody divided based on those issues. But life, political life, our country is so much more than those two issues. But they want to keep us divided. They want us divided ideologically. They want us divided by age. They want us divided by race, religion, gender preference. They're trying to keep us divided. We need to open our eyes, look around and say, well, all right, I don't agree with him or her on one or two or three things, but there are 5,274 other things that we think exactly alike on. Maybe we should sit down and have a conversation and talk about what we have in common and not what our differences are. And if you are one of those people that now is just looking at life through a narrow prism, ask questions. Look at what it is that you're proposing or you're supporting. One of the I follow a lot of people on YouTube for gardening and things like that, and one of the ladies I follow, she's out of Ohio. She had a really cool T-shirt on one time, and it was let's make 1984 fiction again. George Orwell's book, 1984. A lot of what we're experiencing in life today, politically, he talked about in his book, 1984, and his other book, Animal Farm. Two very good reads. I would suggest everybody check them out. But pay attention. The form of government that has brought more people out of poverty and improved the lives of more individuals than anything else is capitalism. Capitalism. Communism doesn't work, fascism doesn't work, because they're only taking care of their own people. Communism is, they talk about everyone sharing. Yeah, that's the minions. The people at the top, they have all the power and all the money. They have the big fancy cars, big houses, take the long vacations. All I'm going to do is look back 30, 40, 50 years ago at the Soviet Union. Today, look at Venezuela. President of Venezuela, he's not living like the people in his country, but the average Venezuelan has lost 20 pounds in the past 10 years. The per capita weight of a Venezuelan is 20 pounds lower than it was. That's communism. Okay? So pay attention. Pay attention. Shortly after this show ends, the primary day will be over. We'll know the results of the races in Rhode Island. And then we have to wait another hour and see what happens on TV. Just be a little skeptical in everything you do. Pay attention to the types of questions and what's said and what's not said, and the quality and type of questions directed at each candidate. It's my understanding neither are going to have notes. Their microphones will be muted while the other one is speaking. So it should be interesting. It should be interesting. And tune in, because it looks like this is the only debate. There's not going to be another one after this. So after this, you're relying on candidates coming and having public appearances, interviews, if they give interviews, and commercials, the campaign commercials. Okay? So this is going to be really, in all likelihood, the only opportunity that you're going to be able to see both candidates together, where they have to think on their feet and respond on the fly. On the fly. And being president of the United States of America is a full-time job. I'm a full-time realtor. This is all I do, and I know how much time it takes for me to stay on top of what I have to do. And when you are president, you need to be the best manager around. You need to manage people. And if someone is not managing their people underneath you, if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they need to be fired. There's no reason we shouldn't have the best people running the different agencies and departments in this country. Folks, believe it or not, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM 1380 on the AM dial. You can also catch us on Spotify as a podcast. We rebroadcast the show every Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. as well. I want to thank our sponsors, of course, Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster, licensed by the state of Rhode Island. Vern looks out for you, the property owner. He does not work for the insurance company. He is a public insurance adjuster. Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. That's 484-300-8495. Vern is a local guy. He will get back to you within 24 hours of you calling him. That's Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. And, of course, Compass Title and Escrow. Anthony Betancourt and his team at Compass right in Lincoln, Blackstone Valley Place. They do a great job taking care of our buyers and our sellers. That's Compass Title and Escrow. We send our buyers and sellers there so they can receive quality care for their closing. And then, of course, GMET's Moving and Storage. We send our clients there because they will take care of your belongings as if they were their own. GMET's Moving GMetsMoving.com is where you can get a price or schedule your move, whether you're moving furniture from one side of the house to the other, or moving your entire household or apartment to another part of the state or another state. GMets Moving and Storage can help you there. It's the best move you'll ever make. Premier movers in southern New England. GMets Moving and Storage. So, folks, I want to talk about the final minutes of the show, wrapping up, getting back to real estate. Sometimes homeowner insurance companies, they do what's called an audit of your home. Usually, you're aware of when they're doing it, and they take pictures, and then they take those pictures back and they assess and do whatever they do, make their determination. And they may say, you know what, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, we do not want to renew your homeowner's policy unless you do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G before the policy renews. If that happens to you, give me a call, 401-409-5030, and I will share some personal information with you, 401-409-5030, and the things that you can do. Okay, I'll give you the inside track on that information. So, folks, if you are looking to call me to buy a home, or even better, sell a home, but buyers and sellers are welcome at Joe Luca Real Estate, just give me a call, 401-409-5030, or you can try 401-580-9797, and I'll answer any questions that you have and probably give you more information than you were expecting on a first-time call. Because buying a home, selling a home is a big step. There are a lot of things to consider. And I've been doing this a long time. I've helped hundreds of people with their real estate transactions. And I love what I do. I value my job. I'm grateful that I'm in this industry, and fortunate that I've been rewarded with people calling me up and referring people to me. So if you have a home that you'd like to sell, or you'd like to buy a home, or even just prepare. I was talking with a woman today. She doesn't want to buy a house till next spring. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. We're going to get you so you're the most educated buyer on the market next spring. That's what my objective is. So that way that she'll have a very good understanding of what the market is doing, and she'll have her thumb on the pulse of the housing market, because I will have been able to educate her, for 4 or 5 months. If you're looking to sell a home, okay, I was talking with a woman today, she just doesn't want to own a home anymore, she wants to rent. There are a lot of things that are not her cup of tea. So like, all right, well, look, think it over. When you're ready, we can help you. I have people, if it's decluttering, if it's getting rid of things, if it's cleaning up, I have a team of folks that I can connect you with who are reliable, licensed, and do a good job. And will help make it easier for you. Sometimes, folks, we inherit homes, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, whoever, aunt and uncle, they move on to a nursing home or pass on, and you have a home full of stuff. And you walk in, and the garage is full of stuff. And you go to the basement, and the basement is full of stuff. And there's all of the old furniture and old clothing. And the basement has spider webs everywhere, and the garage has spider webs everywhere. And then you come back a week later and it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to cut the grass. Oh no, it's fall, we have to clean the gutters so they don't overflow. And you're not prepared to do that because you have your own house to take care of. You can't take care of grandma's house too. My team, we have folks who can help you in any capacity that you would like. Okay, we can do minor things. We can do everything. Soup to nuts. Clean a house. clean the house out. In other words, remove everything from the house. Then clean the house, spick and span, and then market the house. If there are, typically what we do is we'll have the family go through the house first, tag things. Okay, this is going to Susie's house. This is going to, Sally's house. This is going to Bob's house. And then everything other than those items that are tagged will be donated or provided to, sold on consignment, depending on the quality of the furniture. We'll handle all of that stuff, and then we'll have someone go through the house and clean it up. That way you don't have to worry about it, because most of us, we're busy living our lives. You've got your own job. Maybe the kids are in school. Kids need to be shuttled here, shuttled there. Maintenance on your home. And it can be really overwhelming. What I do with my team is we try to make that as simple as possible and remove the anxiety-causing items so you don't have to deal with them. Okay? Folks, you have been listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 AM. We're also on Spotify. Johnny uploads the show later on tonight. We rebroadcast the show Saturday at 1 o'clock. Okay. If you have questions about real estate, whatever they are, give me a ring, 401-409-5030. 401-409-5030. I want to do a shout out thank you to our sponsors, Vern Rainville, public insurance adjuster licensed by the state of Rhode Island, 484-300-8495. Compass Title and Escrow, Anthony Betancourt and his team, attorneys, paralegals, everybody over there does a great job taking care of our clients, buyers and sellers. And then, of course, premier mover in southern New England, G-Metz Moving and Storage. That's gmetzmoving.com. They can help you out with your move. If you just need something moved from one side of the house to the other side, or if you need your entire household moved to the other side of the state, G-Metz Moving and Storage can help you out there. So hopefully everybody will tune into that debate tonight, and if you have questions, 401-409-5030 on anything I've talked about tonight. Other than that, I will see you next Tuesday right here on WNRI. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, Rick Marinier and the Old Time Preaching Ministry is coming up next. Listen to Rick for some awesome scripture explanation. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.